Hello everyone, and welcome to my first Flosstube. My name is Steve, and I'm excited that you're joining me today. This episode's going to be called WIP Parade, ? Because I have been cross-stitching for a number of years, but I have just recently learned to break the seal on my cross-stitching projects and move beyond monogamy in the world of cross-stitch. And so now that I have several projects in rotation, I've decided, since I've been watching Flosstube for a number of years, that I thought I would throw my hat in the ring and be able to start to open up some dialogue between other cross-stitchers to be able to learn more about this world of cross-stitch that I've been enjoying for the past few years, but I have done minimal work. I've done a few projects and I've started a few, but I am a slow cross-stitcher. So let me give you a little bit of background about myself. Again, my name is Steve, and I live in central Illinois in a little town called Clinton. I have been a long-time fiber artist, mainly in knitting. A little bit of background in crochet, learned weaving. I do spinning as well. And I started a video podcast about knitting 14 years ago, if you can believe it. In 2011, I started my YouTube channel called Dramatic Knits, and it's still going. I did take a hiatus in the year of 2023 because I was finding it hard to find the motivation to continue recording my podcast. And so I came back last year in 2024, and I changed so that my knitting podcast, Dramatic Knits, is now hosted via Patreon. And I do that podcast as a way to raise funds for renovations and continued improvements for the historic Taylor McGill building here in Clinton, Illinois, which is where we are right now. So another little bit about my history. I have been with my partner, Andy, for 17 years now. We're going on almost 18 this year. So my joke is that our relationship is going to be a full legal adult at our anniversary this year in August. But my partner, Andy, and myself started our small business, Leading Men Fiber Arts, which is an indie hand-dyed yarn company. And we started Leading Men Fiber Arts in 2013. So we just hit 11 years in business back in August. And in 2021, we opened our dye studio into an actual storefront. So we started dyeing yarn out of our kitchen 11 years ago. And the business was very, very small at its beginnings, if you could imagine. And the business quickly grew, and we needed to dye more yarn. We were both doing this part-time when we started. I'm a former high school English teacher, focusing in English and theater, hence where Dramatic Knits and Leading Men Fiber Arts come from, is my background in the theater world, previous to the fiber arts and crafting world, which is now my life. And so we were dyeing yarn out of our kitchen. We quickly realized that just doing this part-time was, we could continue to grow. So about 8 years ago, I went full-time with the business dyeing yarn. At that point, we hired our first employee. My partner, Andy, then realized that we could continue to grow and expand. And so about a year after that, he joined me going full-time, and this is now our full-time business. And then a year after he went full-time, we decided to move the business out of our home, and we purchased a building here on our town square, which was a dog groomer's, about 8 years ago, like I said. And no, not 8 years ago. That's when I went full-time. Maybe about 6 years ago, we purchased the building, and we were in that building for 2 years just as our dye studio. We were not open to the public, and I realized my passion for wanting to share what we do here and to create a community of crafters here in our small town, and more specifically here in central Illinois. So we opened our doors in January 2nd of 2021, once things kind of died down with the pandemic and people were out shopping again. We wanted to open our doors and share with our community what we offer and what we do, and to invite more people to become makers and crafters. So that was a little over 4 years ago. And then in the summer of 2023, the opportunity arose for us to purchase the historic Taylor McGill building, which was built in 1872 as a railroad hotel. And I'll be inserting some pictures here of the hotel and back from when it was built through today. And so the opportunity arose for us to purchase the building. We got it at an extremely low price. And it just worked out well that it was located right next door to our studio, and we could expand our storefront into one of the 2 finished spaces in the building. So right now there's our storefront, which is finished, and then there's an Edward Jones office next to us, and it worked out that there are renters, so we'd make a little bit of money off the building as well. But other than that, half of the main floor and both of the top floors, there's 3 stories in this building, are not usable. I mean, no heat, no water, no electricity. They have been gutted down to their studs. There is plenty of issues with the building, but the building itself is in good standing. So we decided if we could purchase the building, even just to move our storefront in here and be done, that is all we wanted. But I decided with my decision to come back to my knitting podcast, Dramatic Knits, that I wanted to do it via Patreon. And so our subscribers over there, for $1 a month, they get a once a month update video of my knitting podcast. And with that, I go into more of what's been going on in our lives and the business and traveling and more pictures. And I go into things about what I'm watching and reading, as well as other crafts and behind the scenes to our studio and storefront, as well as, some tips and tricks and coupons and things like that. So there, I think for $1 a month, it's well worth it. But that money that's raised via Patreon for the knitting podcast is used to do small projects in terms of the building itself. But I decided, since I've been really delving into my cross stitch this new year, that I wanted to do an open YouTube channel for my cross stitching, do a Flosstube, and I thought, what better way to start off my first Flosstube other than doing a WIP parade? I've been watching so many WIP parades and getting introduced to new to me floss tubers, and I thought, what the heck, I'll throw my name in the ring. So this is called Flosstube WIP Parade ? Because I do only have 3 projects. For the last 3+ years, I've been working on one project monogamously, and I've decided after 3 years and only hitting about 60% done on the project that I was ready to start something new with more colors and something a little bit different. And once I've opened those floodgates, now the world's my oyster in cross-stitching, and I'm like, you know what? I do want to get things done in my life, but I also want to maintain my passion and my creativity with cross-stitching. And so I thought today I would talk a little bit about my journey, which I've kind of been doing, show you what I do currently have as WIPs or works in progress, and then show you what I have kitted up or some things that I've shown interest in the past. I do have a purchase from 123 Stitch heading my way, and and as well with the business, we do sell a little bit of cross-stitch fabric. We have a few pieces left from Fiber on a Whim that we've carried in the past. And we've had charts that we've sold from anywhere from Lindy Stitches to Glendon Place. And we have had some Long Dog samplers in the past. I think we have 1 pattern left from them, but they weren't a big seller. And I was like, we're not really known in the cross stitch community, and I would love to be offering more, but we have to make sure that products that we bring in are moving and selling. And so I thought, I'd love to hear from you all in the Flosstube community about what you think we should stock, what you would love to see offered on Leading Men Fiber Arts, both in person and on our website, leadingmenfiberarts.com. And be able to offer a wider selection of cross-stitch patterns, fabrics, flosses, things of that nature, and to be able to hear from you all and start that dialogue. So, before I show you my first project, I wanted to talk about a project that I was working on prior to this. For about 2 years, I was working on a Heaven and Earth Designs full coverage chart. And unfortunately, one of our dogs, who have now both previously passed, this was many years ago, decided that my cross-stitch project smelled really good and wanted to chew on it, and in fact chewed a hole through the fabric, and I thought, okay, maybe I can salvage this somehow. And then I realized he chewed a hole through the fabric into the actual project, and there was no way of saving it. And I had worked for about 2 years on that project. And sometimes you just gotta realize you gotta cut your losses. So I did. That unfortunately went in the trash, and I had bought a material pack from Hade or Heaven and Earth Designs, and I put all the flosses away, and I was just like, some other day. But I thought I would show you a mock-up on my Kindle as to what that pattern looked like. This was called One for Sorrow, and I was up in this corner after only about 2 years, but it was sad. It was sad to say goodbye to that. Never say never. I do have flosses, and I did buy flosses to do that 2/2 on 25 count, and I think now I would do 1/1 on 25 count full coverage, and so I might have enough flosses left to be able to do that again somewhere down the line, but it's going to be a while before I put that on. So let's talk about my 3 WIPs, all 3 of them. The first one that I've been working on since May of 2021 is from Modern Folk Embroidery, and it is called Fruits Aplenty. It was Jacob's stitch along for 2021, and I had been watching people on Flosstube showing this from January when it started all the way up through May, and I decided, I like this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to buy linen, I'm going to buy flosses. I love that on 1, 2, 3 stitch, I can find a pattern and add the fabric and all the flosses to cart. If I can't get the fabric, I can find a substitution. And generally that works out really well for me. And here is a mock-up, if I can get my Kindle to do what I need it to do, of Fruits Aplenty. And, whoops. There we go. Whoop. There's a mock-up of it. I am doing it in 2 blues, very similar to these, because I liked it. And I was like, I'm not going to mess with stuff. I'm not at that point in my cross-stitching journey where I am throwing a bunch of things to the wind and doing my own thing. And I am right now at 64.85% on this after working on this for over 3 years now. But here we are. This is being stitched. I don't know the color numbers of DMC. It's 2 shades of blue DMC, and this is on a 32 count Belfast linen from Picture This Plus in the color Tycho. And here is where I'm at. I just got to the point where I got to stitch my first initial in there. So I told you my name is Steve, so I got the S in there. And I really was hoping with the alphabet that I could get both of mine and my partner's first and last initials on there, because our house is actually blue and somewhat represents the blue house there in the middle motif. But unfortunately, there was not enough space to get 2 initials in both of those spaces. Now, I could have tried to figure out how to downsize the text, but I don't have charting software, and even just figuring out how to get a letter from a chart and put it in there that was not charted was already kind of a headache for me, but you can see all the motifs there. I am a very slow stitcher, so this has taken me quite a long time, and my partner was really sad to see me move away from making progress on this piece because, you know, he's like, it takes a while and I don't want you to get distracted or get defeated. But I am going to actually probably put this back on the hoop today, or my Q-snap and floor stand, and work on this. I think I'm going to be doing weekly rotations, so you'll probably see me work on 4 to 5 projects every video because I'm going to do one once a month. It's easiest to set this up before I do my knitting podcast and to record this then. So you'll get an update from me, a Flosstube, once a month. But yeah, this has not been off the Q-snap and held up very often, so I'm kind of still just taking this in as to how great this looks when, you know, you can only see one portion. It's nice to see it in all its glory. It's quite impressive when I actually sit back and am able to see it all done. So that's Fruits of Plenty by Modern Folk Embroidery. And I would love to get some of these projects on scroll rods and a scroll frame. I would love to hear what you all recommend. I was looking on Etsy and there was a brand, I think she was Sonata Beauty, and she's based out of Ukraine, but it's a wooden big, you can get a huge floor stand with a light built in. But I asked her about if you can just take the rods out and keep your project sewn onto rods and then put the rods in. And she's like, well, you can buy extra rods, but I'm not sure that it was built that way. It wasn't very clear. And the rods, you actually have to buy the whole lighting structure for every rod that you put in. It's not a simple take in and take out, which is what I would really want. Right now I have an 11 by 17 Q-snap is what I like to work in. I like to have a lot of coverage. I cannot stitch in hand. I've tried. Hoops don't really work for me. I have a cheap plastic one, but getting the hoop on there and then the fabric in there without making the top of the hoop pop off doesn't really work. So I found that Q-snaps work really well for me, but I tend to work on projects that have a lot of excess fabric, and managing those, I've bought the magnetic things and even the fabric tamers from Yarn Tree. Even managing with those isn't the easiest. And so having to put something into a Q-snap, manage the fabric, get it situated is a lot of work in my opinion. So I don't like to do that more than like once a week. I haven't done it for months on this. So I'm getting used to having to change it out like once a week, but it's like I just got it in and I got to change it again. So I've seen the ones on Evertote. I did look and their floor stands were out of stock. I would love to get something that I can, and I need information. So if you guys know of great tutorials, if you recommend a stand and tutorials on, I don't sew. So like, I think I can hand base the fabrics onto scroll rods. But what's the best way to be able to do that and keep them on their rods so you can just throw the rods onto the frame and go to town is what I'd really like. Because again, the scroll rods keep the fabric out of the way. It's all rolled up. It's what I would prefer. I am definitely a two-handed stitcher. I did, even try to like hold a Q-snap and my wrist gets tired from holding the Q-snap. Again, it's 11 by 17, but also I find I have better hand-eye coordination when I can, come from the top with my right hand, which is my dominant hand, and then come from the bottom with my left. It's just the way that I found that I love to stitch. I love to stitch using Pattern Keeper, though I am starting to move into paper patterns, but how to mark those and making a working copy, this is all new to me. So I would love to hear from you all do you agree? Like, what do you prefer? How do you mark your charts? Because I literally want to fill in every box and highlight them as I go. And that's why I love Pattern Keeper, because I have a hard time like finding charts or finding symbols or colors or numbers on a chart and being able to, because I like to work in a 10 by 10 block and then move to the next one or down with a thread. And I'm learning with all this. So you get to come along with the journey on me as I really delve into cross stitch a lot more than I have in the past. Okay, so the second project I started this last week or 2 weeks ago. This is my first cross-stitch project bag. I bought this on Etsy from Little Boat 88 out of Canada, which I'm glad I did. I ordered it, I think, before there were tariffs and all that. But I loved this fabric. I thought it went with the project very well. This is a Joy Sunday kit called the Tree of Dreams. This is a pre-printed Ada cross-stitch kit. And I worked on this for a week and I hardly got anything done. So the flosses come like this, already pre-sorted. What I've been doing is I just cut the loop, and then like my Haid kits, I can pull one strand out from the tie. And then I forget what I've been doing to try to, because like if I only pull one, I was cutting and pulling like a whole 6 strand and retying it on, but I can actually take my needle and get one strand out that way. The problem with this is I have a hard time reading the printing on the fabric unless there's a lot of stitches together, like they actually help you with that by putting the number. But there's a symbol. Okay, let me show you the fabric. Getting out of order here. So here is the fabric, and you can see what little I've done there. I started my first 2 threads by just coming through, and I'll stitch over the ends and then cut those later. But I've been doing the loop start, which is my preferred method. I need to learn how to be able to start with a single strand or how not to use a loop start. I've watched videos and I don't like having to keep turning and then like pulling my threads through the back. I have to do that at the end of every thread. I'd rather not do that at the beginning. So I find the loop start the quickest and easiest way, but if you have recommendations, I'd love to hear that as well. But like, especially starting in this corner, there's tons of confetti, and being able to read what those symbols are is very hard to do in a lot of these. And there's a lot of colors in these. They do give you a key at the bottom, but again, reading what that symbol is compared to how big it is down here, like a dash, so I can't tell half the time. And then it'll tell me, here's the color on the cards, but then here's the DMC number. But I am also working from the printed chart. That's what I can actually read and know that I'm following it, which I'm not going to show you the chart. But the charts have letters and colors that don't match the pre-printed fabric. So then I have to look at what does the chart tell me the number is, and then I have to cross-reference the fabric. So it's like 3 different things I have to keep in my head that I'm looking for, and it's gotten very confusing. And I tried to find a PDF of this chart. Sorry, I just flashed you some colors. There's no PDF. I've tried to find a PDF of a new chart I have coming from me. I tried to see if I could buy it on PDF before I bought it through 123 Stitch. They do not offer it as long as I found it. And riddle me this, as a knitter coming into the cross-stitching community, I know, like, is it the Notions app I need to look into for documenting my cross-stitch projects? Why has someone not come up with something like Ravelry where you can sell patterns PDF-wise that would automatically go into Pattern Keeper, and you could just purchase it via this platform like Ravelry and be able to document all your projects? Why is that not a thing yet? I mean, cross-stitch and Flosstube has been around for many years, and I'm like, come on, somebody who's in the tech world, run with that. It would be so much easier. So anyway, here's Tree of Dreams. Very little I got done on this, even though I worked on it for a week. This was my one and only needle minder until like 2 weeks ago. I now have 3. Hold up, I bought one for every project that I have started. And that's a 14 count Ada, which was weird getting back to that. Excuse me. I don't talk a lot during the day unless like there's customers in the store. And I like to drink a lot throughout the day. You'll see me drinking throughout the episode, but I tend to get like hiccups and, so don't mind me. Just Steve being Steve. Okay. My third and final WIP. I started this last week. I made a purchase from 123 Stitch. I have it all in this bag. These are a lot of the fun colors in here. And this is a Carolyn Manning design called Make-A-Wish. I actually meant to order the fabric and floss for a different Carolyn Manning design. Over a year ago, I purchased 2 of her patterns online because I was like, oh, they're Pattern Keeper. And I was like, I really want these. And what I meant to buy for was sweater weather. And I'm telling you, I love stitching these charts. I just stitched on one of these all week. And I love that I get to change colors, but I can stitch with a whole thread in an area for the most part, or get, good. There's lots of block stitching, which I hate having to find all these random stitches or doing those motifs, but having to count the negative space. Like, I can do it, but it's not my favorite way. I like to fill in. I love the idea of full coverage. That's why I started that Heaven and Earth Designs like 5 years ago. But I've been loving this, but I didn't look, and I was like, oh, I think I know the name of it. And it's this one. So I bought stuff to fabric and floss to make this, which is Make-A-Wish. So this is what I've started, and I've started up in the upper left-hand corner, and I like to stitch in a 10 by 10 block, and I'll start in the upper corner. I really don't care what type of pattern it is. It's just the way that I like to work. I have my first project, I did start in the center, but I don't prefer that. I prefer to buy a piece of fabric that I know is going to have 6 inches, 3-inch margins at least around for framing, because most of my stuff is going to be framing. I'm not a pillow decor type of guy. You'll also see I love watching Flosstube, but I would not personally stitch 90% of what I see. So I'm hoping that through having this open dialogue on Flosstube that I can get more recommendations from you all, but you also can get some more ideas of my stitching style. But this is Make-A-Wish, and just holding it up, I'm so excited to stitch this. I even worked on it yesterday, a day longer than I was planning, because Sundays are our one day off, and that's my day. I'm like, I'm going to switch the Q-snap. I'm going to stitch on a couple of threads at least on my Sunday. I try to throw in about 1 thread floss a day on my cross stitch projects on other days, unless we're traveling, which we do travel a lot for our business to festivals and events. But Sundays are my day that I'm going to switch my projects. But because I knew I was taking everything off the Q-snaps today to record, I was like, I'll give that extra Sunday to yesterday, because I was really loving working on this. So this is, again, Make-A-Wish by Carolyn Manning Designs. This is on 14 count white Aida, which is what I bought from 123 Stitch. I do not love that it's on white, because I can see through my black, and I'm gonna live with it. I would have either preferred pre-gridded fabric, actually, since this is full coverage. Love knowing that at least I'm in the right space. I did work on that with my Heaven and Earth Designs. I used pre-gridded fabric, and I really liked it. But I also think I could have done this most definitely on a nice Aida with a darker background to kind of read through. There is an option to use a moody fabric and not stitch all the black or the DMC 310, but I didn't want that texture or 3D difference. I wanted this whole thing to be stitched. So here's where I'm at. I got this far over the last week. I am about, how far am I? Wrong one. Not used to flipping through Pattern Keeper as much as I have been. I'm usually just leave it on the pattern for a really long time. I am at 3.56% done on this. I got 855 stitches stitched in this so far, out of a total of 24,025. So again, Aida's not as soft. I like the drape and feel of linen, but I was like, you know what? I want to make this easy. I use the magnifiers with the little light and the magnifying glasses. Even on 14 count, I use them and I use Heaven Light because I'm like, I'm 39, been stitching for a number of years, but I even noticed like as I went to 25 count and then 32 count, I have not stitched yet on 40. I have plans to, but I'm like, if my eyes are straining to see this in general, why keep doing that to myself, and why not already just start using tools to help me? So I use magnifiers, and I don't care. I ain't scared. I'm going to use those magnifiers. So, but it was just so much fun to stitch this and just work in all these colors and get these blocks. You know, I was like, oh, there's one thread and I got half that triangle, and that was the 10 by 10 square. So I really can kind of work and use a whole thread, not stitch a few stitches and have to cut it and bind it off, you know, weave my tail in and either move on to another floss or be like, oh, that was my one floss and I got 6 stitches, or, you know, what have you, which was what was going on with that pre-printed fabric. So anyway, I'll fold this back up, and I need to get a project bag for this. I'm going to be spending some money, but my partner is very supportive, and he's very excited to see me excited about this. Like, I was going to buy this, I was looking at that cross stitch stand, like I said, from Ukraine on Etsy, and they actually were having a 20% off deal where I think the whole stand with lights and everything was like, and clamps, and was like $500, so it was $400 after the discount. He's like, go ahead if you want it, if it's what you think you want and you need. And I was like, no, I don't know. He does that. I mean, he's very supportive. I love him. He's gone into life and business with me. Literally, we spend almost 24/7 together. And it's hard sometimes. We're two strong personalities, but he has been nothing but absolutely adoring and supportive and challenging, but in good ways over our 17-year relationship. And our relationship has evolved over 17 years, but there's nothing like having a supportive partner that wants to see your passion and your creativity sparked. And he definitely does that for me. You know, this is not his world. He does a little bit of Legoing, which I'll actually throw in a picture here. He just got the big Titanic done, which he's been working on for over 2 years. But he's been bringing his Lego projects into the store and peppering them in. And so he actually has the big Lego across from me on top of our project bag display. And, you know, the store is a representation of both of us. Even though he doesn't do fiber arts, he still dyes more yarn than I do. He has learned a lot of knowledge and can help customers with the products that we offer. And for him to kind of go into where that's what he's doing every day, all day, and that's my passion and not his, I mean, is a huge testament to the supportive partner that he is. So, all right, here, I thought this mini video was going to be like 17 minutes. I'm like, I've got 3 projects, and I'm not going into a ton of life stuff, but I do want to give you a little bit of background about me so that, you know, because that's when I start a new floss tuber. I like to see their projects, but I also like to kind of vibe with them, or, you know, enjoy their talking, their mannerisms while I'm listening, because, you know, they're telling me their story. It's one-sided in the fact that it's not a conversation, but I feel like it is a one-sided conversation, and you want to enjoy that conversation. So, all right, I brought a few things to show you, things that I might potentially start working on here in the next year, or things that I have ready to go. There's a variety, and in fact, I know there's one I don't have here. I know there's a couple I don't, so I'm gonna have to find those. But this one is a very small dimensions kit that I bought. I thought this would be a good like travel project. I've done one of these before. I don't love backstitching, and these usually have backstitching, but I thought this might be a good like work at. Sometimes we have downtime at work, or I'm helping customers, or I'm sitting over here for an event, or, you know, I need to craft. And so I thought this might be a good on-the-go project. I don't tend to like to take my cross-stitching away from my crafting area at home. And then this is an artiste kit that I got on clearance, probably from Hobby Lobby, $30 originally. I got it for $10.79. This is, I don't know what this is called. There's no name. It's designed by the Cooler Design Studio. Oh, this is the Acorn sampler. And this was originally purchased to make it into a gift. It's no longer going to be a gift, but it has the threads in there, but it has 14 count cream Aida in here. And I was like, I don't want to stitch on Aida. I'm liking linen. So I actually had purchased this to put with the patterns in the floss. So it's kitted and ready to go. This is from Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie. This is a 28 count Jobelin in toasted almond. And so what I did, explaining myself, y'all are probably rolling your eyes, but again, I'm a newer cross stitcher. So, you know, if I'm thinking of something wrong, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. So this was a finished size of 6 by 12 inches on 14 count. So I was like, that's obviously over 1. So if I go over 2 on 28 count, it should be 6 by 12 inches. And so I wanted to make sure that I had enough to frame. Again, I'm going to frame most of my stuff. And so I knew I needed, if it's 6 inches wide, I needed 3 inches on both sides. So I needed a minimum of 12 inches wide, and then 12 inches tall, and I needed 3 inches at the top and 3 at the bottom. So I needed at least 18 inches of fabric at the tall, and this is a cut of 13 by 18. So this will give me plenty of space to put this on. And again, what I do is I know you're supposed to start in the middle. That's the preferred way. It centers it on your fabric. And if there's a reason why I should do that over this, but I just like to start in the top corner and work down. And so I actually just measure 3 inches down, 3 inches in, and there's a little tool that you can even buy to do that. And I know where to start in the fabric to have enough framing at the top and bottom. And based on the cut, I should know I've got plenty of room. If my methodology is wrong in that, please correct me. But so that's it kitted and ready to go. And it looks like there's some back stitches. I am not in this to do specialty stitches, and I think there probably are a few specialty stitches, if not at least back stitching in here. I just like making X's. I like filling in the boxes. That's what floats my fancy with cross stitch. All right. Oh, never mind. This is the project I thought I left at home. This is another discounted kit I got from Riolis, Starry Night. Who doesn't like Starry Night and Van Gogh's artwork? I know I do. But this is a Riolis kit. And it's on Aida again. I might stitch it on the Aida, but since I didn't think I wanted the Aida for that, I got the fabric for that. Though I could keep the fabric for something else that might fit in there. So no immediate plans for this one. The squirrel one might be on sooner than later. And then the one I am thinking of actually starting here really soon is the Pandemic Sampler. Oh, I don't have it on here. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Nope, probably not. That's a shame. Anyway, I'll insert a picture here of the Pandemic Sampler. I don't remember the name of the designer since it's not in front of me. And I've seen quite a few people working on this. And I was watching people starting this when it came out because it was offered for free. I think it was for a extended time, but a limited time in 2020 during the pandemic. So I downloaded the pattern. And then I heard that this dyer out of Spain called Mrs. Seda Silk was offering this silk conversion. And of course, I saw the flosses, but there was no stitched mock-up. Now, I have seen one person, I think Michelle Bendy, Michelle Bendy Stitches, is working on this. And I think I saw this in her WIP Parade. And the flosses are not a direct correlation between the sampler. They're much brighter and yeah, just brighter and more pinks and stuff. So we're gonna see how this works out. I did buy fabric for this. I bought Fabrics by Stephanie again, 40 count linen in Jamie's Kilt, which I know is a notoriously known color of fabric. This is not what the pattern called for, but I think that what the pattern called for was not available on 123 Stitch or where I could find it. And so I decided to dabble with Jamie's Kilt and yeah, because I figured it was kind of a close representation. Again, working online pictures. We all know how it goes shopping online. I run an online store. We do our best to represent our pictures as best as possible. But when you have so many listings and items and, it depends on people's photography skills. I work off of an iPhone and no photography background. Do the best I can. But here are, these were not cheap silks either. And working in a hand-dyed yarn industry and the hand-dyed silk, floss industry, I'm happy people are making the markup that they're making on cross-stitch floss. Because we make a decent amount in yarn. I mean, I'm able to make a living off of it and support a 2-income household and have 3 part-time staff. And, we're doing great, but yeah. So this, I was like really investing. Now I've broken the seal. Oh, I tried to hold these up. Tried to hold these up in a way that you could see most of them, but I'll hold up the first half. So here's the first half of the silks. Now, my question to you would be, how's best to represent these? I think based on how these are on there, can I just put them on like a loop and cut them like the other ones? Because they're all listed on here, what their equivalent is. And I think this is the number on the pattern. I hope that is, because I was like, I don't even know what color is supposed to be what on the pattern. So here's the first set. And but I want to use hand-dyed silks. I haven't done that yet. I'm excited to. And now some of you may ask the question, hey Steve, you guys dye yarn, why don't you start hand dyeing silks and fabrics? I'd love to. We are very lucky. We want our yarn business to keep growing, definitely, but we dye as much yarn as we can every day, and it's a challenge to keep up. So to move into this, I've talked about it, I've had ideas, but to move into it and then have to break down the amount of dyeing and learn all those procedures, which is a completely different dye in general and dye process. It is not something we plan on doing, but I would love to bring in more indie dyers of flosses and fabrics in the store. Like I said, we've had some fiber on a whim. I have put in with accounts for Fox and Rabbit and for Bee Stitch Me, or I looked at Bee Stitch Me, and I've looked at a couple of other dyers. The problem is we are not a typical needlework store. I cannot buy a whole yard of fabric, and we do not cut down, we do not serge, we do not do anything. So I need dyers who offer pre-cut sizes. So fat quarters, fat halves, and maybe even full yards. I need those serged and sold in those sizes so that I can just package them. We literally package them almost like this with a hang hole, and there you go. So I need dyers that offer that as a possibility. I know Fiber on a Whim does, but again, we weren't selling it as quickly, but I have a feeling with starting with Flosstube, I can become an online resource for you all, and I want to hear from you all, and again, the dialogue. So if you know of dyers, please leave those in the comments. I'm going to enjoy reading the comments below and starting that dialogue with you all. So all those fancy silks, Mrs. Seda silks, are going on this fabric for the pandemic sampler. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to show you is this chart that I bought. called Four Seasons. It's in Chinese, so I have no idea. I think I found this online somewhere. And it looks like this. I absolutely love this aesthetic. Just love this. So I do need to buy fabric for it. I do need to figure out how big it is. So there's that. Because it has sizes down there, but I can't tell. It says something size and then something size. So, and they're both in centimeters. So then I have to do the old US of A thing and convert it into inches and what all that means. But the chart is double. I mean, it's decently big, but it's also that waxy material. So what do you guys do? How do you make working copies of everything and then actually mark off on your working copy? For those of you that mark off, how do you do that? What's the best way? Because my copy of the Tree of Dreams, it's not as glossy as this, but a little glossy, and I use like a very fine tip felt marker, and it kind of does that. Like if I'm gonna rub it, it's gonna come off. It sticks, and then it lightens through, and so I might need to make working copies. But I'm realizing that I can't just sit down and go with a lot of these. Like I've learned that with knitting. Like I can ball up my yarn, I've got my needles, got my pattern, and I usually can just go. There's a lot of prep work to getting started with these things. So that's my WIP Parade for 2025. I can't wait to go back in 2026 and be like, here's the 58 projects I started. Caution to the wind. I'd love to be that person, but I also like to see progress and finish things, because when I get too many projects going, I start to feel that crafter's guilt, which I shouldn't. I empower people to do what they love, and I to not hold any, hard and fast deadlines and restrictions on yourself when you are making, because if you're wanting to make as a sense of joy, and you want to make that process as enjoyable as possible. So if you're not making those deadlines or those restrictions that you put upon yourself, then you need to be able to modify or take a step back. And that's something that I'm working on personally in my growth and evolution as a human being these last year or two. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me on my first Flosstube. I sure hope you enjoyed. If you do, please click the like and subscribe button here on the Dramatic Knits channel. It is still going to be the same channel. Again, my videos you will not see, even though you're subscribed, you will not get updates for that when you're subscribed to this channel, because I hide those videos and they are only available via my Patreon subscribers. I will have that Patreon link down below. If you get into knitting or spinning or want to know a little bit more about our business or enjoy chatting with me and want a little bit more of a life update, then I encourage you to join us there on Patreon. Again, your $1 a month gets you a monthly update video, as well as sometimes coupon codes or updates, or being able to buy things before the general public. And so, there's benefits to subscribing. Thank you again. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And until I see you in February, I hope you are stitching till your heart's content. Bye.